And John Dickerson is with us now from Washington. John, I want to put up a quote from Jonah Goldberg, writing in the National Review. He supported the strike, but wrote, quote, "The strike on Syria is the single best proof that Trump has no overriding commitment to any ideological position. If Trump can abandon his position on this all because of some horrific pictures on TV, what position is safe?" Help us, John, understand that criticism. Can't the president change his position in response to events?
Sure, a president certainly can. But Ramesh Ponnuru, who is here on Face the Nation, articulated a similar view, though not as pointedly as Jonah. The idea is that in this particular case, there were plenty of similar pieces of evidence that previously the president or candidate Trump could have been similarly affected by. And so, nevertheless, during that entire period, he maintained the posture that Syria was too complicated a place to mess with and to get involved in and to send any kind of military action in. And when we asked him about it during the campaign, he said, "What, am I going to start World War III over Syria?" So that was his position. Nothing in this case changed, really, except, of course, a new use of chemical weapons, and there were those actual pictures. But as many people have noted, chemical weapons were used before, and there is plenty of carnage and atrocities going on with conventional weapons and other things that Bashar al-Assad is doing. So why, on the one hand, is the president moving in one case where it's a humanitarian crisis and not in these various other places? And so Jonah Goldberg's critique is that it's because he has no fixed ideology. And the reason you want, whatever the fixed ideology may be, the reason you want a set of beliefs is that they stay sturdy when events knock up against them. And the reason you don't want a president who's so rigid that he can't change. But you also, this is the sort of yin and yang of the presidency. You don't want a president who's so movable that he changes all the time. So that's what we're learning about Donald Trump. Which kind of president is he? What motivated him? And those are some of the crucial questions coming out of this action taken in Syria.
Yeah. Well, John, until this week, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson had very limited exposure to the press and the public. Yours was one of the first interviews he's given since becoming Secretary of State. Is his role in the administration, you think, shifting now?
Well, his public role has shifted, as you pointed out. He is now speaking more for the administration. He spoke pretty clearly, very clearly, about Russia and in short and direct sentences, which is also not a widespread practice by every member of the administration. He is now headed to Moscow, which is about the most, you could argue, most important place to be headed for a Secretary of State in the wake of this action in Syria. He has been to the Far East, also another hotspot and important place in the administration. The challenge will be figuring out where exactly the administration is on some of these key issues. We saw some distance today between what Secretary of State Tillerson told us about the limits of U.S. involvement in getting rid of the Syrian regime and what the UN ambassador Nikki Haley has been saying, which suggests a more active U.S. role in removing Bashar al-Assad. There may be no actual policy difference. They may be taking a position essentially that the Obama administration had, which is, yes, they want to get Assad out, but they're not going to talk about it all the time because, A, they don't want their fingerprints to be all over it. They want to make it look like a bipartisan or a multinational push, and also because it's awfully hard to get him out of power without taking extraordinary measures, and you don't want to keep saying you want to do something and then failing to do it. It doesn't look so good. So the distance between the UN ambassador and Secretary of State may not be vast, but it does appear to exist a little, and that's just an ongoing question about who speaks for the administration that is still not resolved.
Well, John, let's talk about the Senate. The Senate changed the rules this past week, allowing Judge Neil Gorsuch to be confirmed with a simple majority instead of 60 votes. In your Face the Nation notebook, you said the Senate could make the same change for pieces of legislation. What are the prospects of that?
Well, you talked to some senators who were in a very cranky mood after the Senate was unable to sort of save itself from the partisan lock that both parties feel like they're in by avoiding this change in the Senate rules. If you talk to them, they think that this is coming, that the filibuster will go away for legislation. Here's what to watch for: a piece of legislation that matters so much to the bases of the parties that no member of the party can really buck that. And that's not just it's Republicans. You could imagine it happening. maybe even on health care, although the current example with health care makes that a little complicated. But with Democrats, what if a bill to fix what they see as the horrible outcome of the Citizens United decision? That bill on campaign finance could be one that the grassroots makes it a purity test, and then whoever the leader of the party is has to break the rules about a 60-vote threshold in order to please the grassroots. So senators could absolutely imagine it happening. Here's the key. Why would it happen? Because the political price paid for not maintaining the old rules has basically gone away over time in these court battles. People just don't pay a penalty for changing the traditions of the Senate. And if that's the case, senators believe, then lots of those traditions could tumble in the future.
All right. John Dickerson in Washington for us. John, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.